What's up, gang? Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius and Paul. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius and Paul. And boy, do we have a special guest. Paul Chek is in the house. What's up, Paul?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Man, I am happy that you are here. I'm so pumped to have you. Guys, so I've been following Paul's work now. Before the show started, I was kind of giving him some background. I'll give you guys a background in a second. I've been following his work now for almost 2 decades. And Paul is what is known in the streets as a badass. And that's technical term, in case you're wondering. But yeah, man, Paul, so pumped to have you here. Like you are a wanted man, and we're honored to have you on our show today. Thank you.
It's great to be here. I love to share whenever I can.
Yeah, man, you are doing some awesome work out there. So, just to give the audience a little bit of background, like, first of all, you guys all know I'm a selfish bastard, and I always just want people on here so I can hang out with them and learn from them. But you guys get all the great side effects of my learnings. But I was introduced to Paul's work about almost 20 years ago, and I had a trainer at Diacati Gym in San Francisco named Tom Armenta, who was like a lifelong learner, just a hardcore. This guy was like geeked out on fitness and specifically like holistic fitness. And he started getting certified doing the Chek program, which is we're going to be talking about Paul's program at the Chek Institute. And he went to the Chek Institute, and I don't remember exactly how far up he went, but he spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to learn from Paul, and came back, and I was the beneficiary of his learnings. And I'm going to tell you, Paul, like, I mean, there's a lot of people out there spouting, fitness stuff, but like your stuff blew my mind. I was like, this guy, who is this guy? So anyway, just I'm a disciple of a disciple, and it was really cool. And so I started following Paul maybe a few years later on social, and like, man, you have just such interesting perspectives on life and fitness and spirituality and health. And so I've been like stalking you. Wanted you to get on the show, man, and here we are. Just pumped to have you.
Happy to share. I love all those topics.
Yeah, me too. That's like, we're like talking my language. So I'm going to give your formal bio, and we love origin stories here at the Greatness Machine. Would love to kind of hear, how did you get to where you got to? Because you're doing some really interesting things in the world, and I'd love to hear, like, how'd you get there? But guys, Paul is a holistic fitness and wellness expert, founder of the Chek Institute, host of the Spirit Gym and Paul Chek podcast. He has his upcoming 15-volume book series called Welcome to the Spirit Gym, Your Guide to More Love, Life, and Freedom. And we're going to be talking about ways that you guys can hook up with him and the people that are doing work with him after the show, or towards the end of the show. But Paul, I'd love if you didn't mind jumping into like some of your origin story. Like, I'm sure you didn't wake up one day and start doing all this amazing holistic wellness work. Like, give us some of your background. How did you get to where you got to?
Well, actually, I was born in Los Angeles, and my father drowned when I was 8. But my father had left my mother and my 2 siblings, and my mother remarried a man who was a special effects man at Universal Studios, and he had a degree in agriculture. And they didn't want to live in LA. They didn't want to raise us in LA. So we moved to Idaho. We had a pig farm for 3 years. Then we moved to Cottage Grove, Oregon. And my parents started a sheep farm, and they wanted to specialize in crossbreeding sheep to produce black wool, because my mother's a spinner and a weaver, a craftswoman and a sculptor. And so they started buying up rams that were known to produce a higher degree of black offspring. I'm sure you heard of black sheep.
Yeah.
So then they immigrated to Vancouver Island, British Columbia, and acquired a 142-acre farm. And my parents started the Abundance Black Sheep Farm, and we had a woolen factory, and we had cows, horses, chickens, pigs, goats. We had a large produce section of our farm. We sold produce and we sold firewood. So we were a working farm. And so I was raised largely in a farming environment from the time I was about 7. And my mother became a yogi when I was 12. She was previously a Christian Scientist, which I found very stressful as a child. And then when she became a yogi, it was like my whole world opened up and my life changed drastically for the better. And then when I was 15, I went to summer camp with the monks and learned a lot more about meditation and Yogananda's philosophy of life. And then I joined the Army and became a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division in 83. And then, long story made short, I didn't really like my job. I repaired weapon systems on Cobra helicopters, but I found it kind of boring, and I was gaining weight. They hardly ever exercise in aviation. So I got myself in shape on my own time, and I went down and scheduled a tryout to get on the Army boxing team so I could fight full time, because I have a background in boxing and martial arts. And so the only way you can get on the Army boxing team is to beat one of the guys on it, which isn't easy to do. We were the 3rd ranked boxing team in the world at the time. We'd only been beaten by Russia and Cuba. And so I fought my way onto the boxing team. I knocked a guy out in the 2nd round, and then I fought for a while on the team. I represented the United States Army in triathlon while I was fighting on the boxing team. And ultimately, I was asked to become the trainer because they couldn't figure out how I could train for 2 sports that were so intense at one time and be successful in both of them. And that began my professional career. I worked with an osteopathic physician for 2 years and learned a lot about sports injury care. And I was put in charge of nutrition because I learned from my mother holistic nutrition. And, we lived very close to the ground. We ate everything that we raised. We hardly had to get anything from the store. So my whole approach to nutrition was very farm-based and very natural. And that's how I ate as a fighter and an athlete. And the other guys were just eating, common carbohydrate crap out of diet books and getting all lost and confused. And the coaches noticed that I never ate the way everyone else ate. And they thought that had something to do with my ability to train so much. So they put me in charge of nutrition. I was in charge of designing all the conditioning programs for the boxers, managing the gym. And so that gave me the time to train for triathlon and manage the boxers. When I got out of the Army, I went to sports massage therapy school in San Diego, and then I got my license as a holistic health practitioner. And I began working on sports injuries with a chiropractor that specialized in sports injuries for 2 years. Then I worked in the largest physical therapy clinic in San Diego for 4 years. With physical therapists, I traveled the world for over 20 years studying with the best experts I could find in every field that had anything to do with healing the body. Then I left there, and me and a partner started our own physical therapy clinic, which we ran for 3 years, and then we sold. Then I started the Chek Institute in 1995. And then I built the entire institute over the span of a number of years. I built the what is now a 5-year academy curriculum, and it's a multidisciplinary institute with everybody from medical doctors and osteopaths and chiropractors and nurses and acupuncturists and strength coaches and personal trainers and massage therapists and people changing careers, coming into a new career. And traveled the world for 25 years, lecturing all over the world in the medical field, physical therapy, chiropractic, osteopathic, massage therapy, personal training, strength and conditioning. So I'm probably one of the few guys that actually traveled the world lecturing in all those arenas at the same time. And Penny and I did that pretty much nonstop. We made it around the world every year for about 25 years before I just got so exhausted I couldn't travel anymore. And fortunately, right when I was hitting my midlife crisis and burnout, the internet became a much more popular thing. So we spent a large amount of time, energy, and money to put as much as of our institute training online so people could study it and be members of the institute from all over the world, which helped the institute grow tremendously. And through COVID, we actually grew and had better income due to the people needing so much online time.
Yeah.
And so I've written 11 books plus the 15-volume set on spirit called Welcome to Spirit Gym, Your Guide to More Love, Life, and Freedom that you mentioned. Volume 1's about to come out. I've written 11 previous books. I've produced hundreds of videos and probably about nearly 30 correspondence courses and online training for holistic health, rehabilitation, corrective exercise, and athletic performance. And I've consulted for Olympic committees, militaries, and elite sports teams all over the world for many years. So that's a kind of a brief summary.
Yeah, no, it's you're well decorated. That's without question. Obviously, I mean, one question for you is, was it a layer? I mean, obviously you got to be a curious person to kind of get into all those things, but is it something where you were just brought up around it and you ended up just falling in love with these different modalities, or is it something where one door opened another, and before you knew it, you started collecting all these different pieces of information that you could do something with?
Well, I was a competitive athlete as a child. I was a competitive motocross racer. I was sponsored by a Honda shop when I was young, so they paid for all my racing. I was very successful as a motocross racer. I was a boxer and a kickboxer. And I played every sport I could play, but I don't like losing. So I studied everything I could study on every aspect. I remember reading Jack LaLanne and Paul C. Bragg. And my ideology was the only way you're going to win is to not only outperform, but outsmart your competition, most of that has to do with what you do in training. It's what you bring to the table on game day, but that's all based on your training. And so I saw a lot of mistakes that athletes were making, going out and drinking at night and eating garbage. And they always thought that their body was like a machine and that food was just fuel like gasoline. And fortunately, my mother's extremely holistic and very deep practitioner of yoga. So I had the yoga influence, and Paramahansa Yogananda's teachings were also very informative from a way of holistic living. And so I also worked in the trades when I was young. I went to school to be an automotive industrial repair specialist, which is a mechanic. So I built my own race cars. I was a successful stock car racer. I drag raced. I built my own engines, welded my own roll cages and everything. I learned to weld early on the farm and perfected that through work. So I always wanted to know how to do things better. Like, how can I make something work better, be more efficient? So I was always interested in what connects to what causes what. And, my habit was to ask what causes that until I hit a dead end and said, okay, I've got to the bottom of this. But when I became a therapist and started working with the human body, I saw that there was this problem that people kept looking at the body like a machine, and that anatomy books were written. For example, if you studied the biceps muscle, it only talked about what the biceps does as an elbow flexor, but it didn't talk about how it worked with all the other muscles of the body, or how it worked with when you're doing a chin up or a bent over row or holding a chainsaw. So I did 5 cadaver dissections, and I studied many books on functional anatomy and took courses on it. And then I learned how the organs and the glands interact with the musculoskeletal system, each other, and the brain. And that was a huge jump in my understanding, because actually the muscles and the joints of the body are actually slaves to your organs. For example, if you're hungry, your stomach tells you to go find food. If you're horny, your body tells your legs to go find a partner. If you're tired, your body tells you to go get in bed. So without a long ordeal, every organ system and every hormonal gland in the body is actually directing the musculoskeletal system to carry out a function to keep the body healthy, vital, and capable of surviving in nature. And that led to the study of psychology, because I ultimately learned that what was causing people problems was the choices they were making and the actions they were taking. And I realized that behind that was always a belief system or ignorance. So I had to identify what are the belief systems that get in the way of people of doing things that they know they should do. Like everyone knows they should rest when they're tired, and they know they should eat real food, not garbage. They know they should spend time doing things that are happy making for them. And they know that they should move their body enough to keep it healthy, but they don't. And in fact, all over the world, countless times in rooms full of healthcare, medical, and professional exercise, trainers and coaches, I would ask, how many of you stay up late even though you know you're tired? And they would raise their 95 to 98% would raise their hands. How many of you are eating stuff you know bothers your body, but you keep doing it anyhow? Almost everyone raises their hands. How many of you work so much that you can't do the things that are happy making for you, and you find yourself having to use alcohol, marijuana, or some other drug to create an alternate reality so you can survive the choices you're making? Almost every hand in the room goes up. So I went through my 4 doctors, Dr. Happiness, Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, and Dr. Movement, and found even at the most elite levels of healthcare, people are often aware that they're ignoring what they need to do, but doing it anyhow. So I found you could write the best health program or the best exercise program or rehab program in the world, but people's diet and lifestyle habits kept subverting the programs, and their addictions and coping mechanisms always got in the way, most of the time, of them actually following the program that they paid to have me design to get them healthy and whole. So I had to go deep into a study of psychology. And then I kept finding that the number one most common cause for people not doing well in relationships or taking care of their body was some religious ideology, some belief from the Bible or some religious text. So I spent many years studying world religion to try to understand the viewpoints of each of these religions and how people were getting essentially brainwashed into these ideas that were living out, even though it was killing them in many ways, causing health problems, relationship problems, money problems, problems with their sexuality, their sex life. And so I then studied all the mystics of each of the world religions and realized they were the only ones telling the truth, and that what they taught was so far beyond the dogma of the religion that it was like completely and utterly a different way of relating to God or to spirit or to source. And you can tell who the ones are that are telling the truth, because the religions themselves would try to kill them all the time, and often did, because they didn't want people to know the truth. They didn't want people to grow up and mature and be self-sustaining adults. They wanted always to keep them under their thumb, under some form of control with a belief system, and make them think that God is going to punish you if you don't follow the rules. And then through my own meditative experiences and having samadhis, which is union with the universe or God, and doing 18 years of Tai Chi, and then I became very studied in the field of plant medicines, and I've conducted over 1,000 plant medicine ceremonies for healing and my own research. And I learned so much about the deeper truths of God and spirit that I was able to correlate my meditation experiences, my Tai Chi, Qigong experiences, and I was able to compare the natural path to the plant medicine path, see what the differences were. And I found that through using plant medicines, I could actually heal people a lot of these belief systems and traumas about 100 times faster than most psychologists can do it. So that's sort of a summary of the steps that I went through in my own career, in the development of the Institute, and in my own life path of study, growth, and exploration.
Yeah. I didn't know that you were that you had that plant medicine was part of your journey, but I was like, I'm 99% sure we're gonna be talking about plant medicine on the show today. So
I did a year of training in 2006 with a doctor that used psychedelic medicines to help people heal from a variety of things, and then did a lot of study with different shaman and medicine carriers, and joined the Native American Council, I believe, in 2006, so I could have a license to do it legally through the Native American Council and had to go through their process to basically get licensed as a medicine man spirit guide. And so that's how I got into it. And so I actually began a deep journey in the study and use and application of plant medicines in 2006. And I've conducted about 1,000 healing ceremonies since I started.
That's amazing. I have a couple questions for you. First of all, you had mentioned your 3 favorite doctors, Dr. Happiness, Quiet, and Movement.
There's 4.
4, excuse me. Which was the 4th one I missed?
Dr. Happiness, Dr. Movement, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Quiet.
Sorry, I missed Dr. Diet.
Yeah.
Would you mind kind of like telling us a little bit about your thoughts around that?
Well, what I did is I studied philosophies all over the world, from things like Kung Fu to yoga to various diet philosophies. And what I found is that there wasn't a single philosophical camp in the world that had each of those 4 key aspects that you have to be a healthy person. Some of them were very overly focused on diet, like veganism is heavy into their dietary dogma, but they don't have anything really about creating happiness in your life. They don't have a spiritual development component, and they don't have a movement component. Then you get into various movement systems, and you might have a tremendous amount on movement, but very little on those other 3 doctors. Then you get into the circles where happiness is being practiced and taught, but many of those people are very unhealthy and don't know how to move, eat, or rest their body, or have a spiritual life, an introspective life. Then you get into the meditation camps, and they're often into weird diet practices and various real strict ism type diets, and often they're very unhealthy, but they do all this work to become enlightened, and they don't move and take care of their bodies. So I had piles of these people because, I worked in Encinitas for many years. My clinic was at, and that's where, it's like meditation central there. So I had all these sick people that thought they were enlightened coming to me, but they didn't know the basics of how to take care of themselves. And so one of the cultures I studied was the Roman culture. And the Romans believed that there was 3 doctors that you had to engage to be a healthy person. So they believed in Dr. Happiness, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Quiet. But back in the Roman era, even washing your laundry was like a workout. So they didn't have an awareness of a lack of physical component. And I actually learned this in a herbology course that I just happened to study, probably around the year 2000, early to mid 2000s. I can't remember. And so I could easily see the obviousness of it, because by that time I probably had 15 years of clinical experience. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, that's the way I can synthesize my teachings down to the very bare essentials of what you've got to cover, or you'll never be a healthy person. And I added Dr. Movement to it. And so then I wrote a book about it called The Last 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need, How to Get Healthy Now. And I basically built that into my education as sort of an archetypal structure, so that no matter what level of my training program, you always had to orient your therapeutic approach to make sure you're addressing Dr. Happiness, Dr. Movement, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Quiet, or you're leaving a gaping hole that anyone will fall through, because there's no such thing as a healthy 3, 2, or 1 doctor person. I've never met one, and it's impossible to create one.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's so interesting. When like going back to your comment about the mystics, when you start thinking of the mystics that you either like really felt like their belief systems or the information that they were teaching really either resonates for you, like who are the top like couple mystics that you would recommend, like someone like myself, to go check out?
Well, Giordano Bruno, Shirawardi. It's hard to spell his name, Shirawardi. He's a Islamic mystic. Rumi, Ibn al-Arabi, Paramahansa Yogananda, Sri Yukteswar, Babaji. Itzhak Bentov, who wrote the book Stalking the Wild Pendulum. All of his 3 books are absolutely excellent. He was the first one to do scientific research on how meditation actually affects people scientifically. He's the inventor of the pacemaker. So he was a scientist mystic, and his writings are very lucid and great for Westerners to understand. Hazrat Inyat Khan is a Sufi mystic who's got a whole series that's fantastic. Arthur M. Young is the inventor of the Bell helicopter and devoted his life to consciousness studies and started an institute. And his books, such as The Reflexive Universe. So he was really another inventor, genius, mystic. And his books are all, he's American, so his books are very readable. Ken Wilber is a philosopher, but has a lot of deep and very impactful teachings. Carl Jung and Rudolf Steiner have deeply impacted my life. I've been studying their collective works for at least 30 years. I could go on and on, but any one of those you start with, you'll hit pay dirt. From a Christian perspective, Father Thomas Keating's teachings are fantastic. He died fairly recently. Then you've got Meister Eckhart, and you've got Saint Hildegard of Bingen. So those are often the ones I lean on for Christian mysticism. There are others, but those are some of the primary ones that are quite accessible.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that. By the way, my eldest son's name is Rumi.
Oh, that's a great name. It's a powerful name.
Yeah. So I'm half Persian and half Italian, but my name is a very Persian name, Darius, after King Darius, and then my last name is Mir Shahzadeh, which means descendant of the royal king.
Very beautiful.
So yeah, it's Farsi is a very beautiful language, and so when we were naming our kids, we were going to name my son Cyrus. My wife's half Mexican, half French, and we were reading a book of Rumi poetry when she was giving, in the waiting room.
Yeah,
and we changed his name at that day. So I have a Rumi.
Well, yeah, that's a names are very, very impactful, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
Interestingly, my name, Paul, means the messenger.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. I thought you'd appreciate that. But, I wanted to kind of pivot a little bit, because I think that anyone that's listening, obviously you're an endless wealth of knowledge, and you're a curious guy that has studied so many different things. I think that for an average person maybe listening to the show, they might be like, oh my God, I don't want to fly a fighter jet. How can I, what are some simple things, or what are some simple principles that you would recommend someone that wants to really take this stuff seriously, but not get overwhelmed? How do you think folks should approach it? Because I think that there's a lot of stuff here to talk about, but I think the average person... Are you talking
about health or mysticism or religion, or what are you specifically referring to?
I think let's start with health, and then maybe we could talk a little bit more around spirituality and mysticism, because I'm a person where, to your point, if you don't eat well and you're not moving your ass, moving your body, and you have a frantic mind and you don't have any connection to source, if any of those are off, you don't feel good.
No, you won't feel good, right? and you won't do well either.
And so for me, whenever I'm off, one of those 4 are off without question, and I have to, or I just go back to getting them right. Is it as simple as that, hey, figure out what works for you in those 4 areas and go do it, and make sure you build some practices around it? How should an average person think about these things?
Well, I have a system I created to address that very issue, because as you can imagine, there's 63,000 Chek professionals around the world, and they all deal with everybody from professional athletes to grandmothers and field workers to pilots. So I created a system called the 1, 2, 3, 4 system. So everybody knew exactly what to do and what was important to do. So the 1 is, what is the one love that you love enough to overcome the gravity and the inertia of life to grow and become something? So we call that, what is your dream? What is your dream goal or objective that's important enough to you to make the changes you need to be the person that you want to be, so you can live that dream? I often quote Jerry Wesh, the psychologist, who says, if you have a big enough dream, you don't need a crisis. And it's very, very true. Most people just run from crisis to crisis because they're sort of caught in the habitual patterns of society, which, as we know, are very unhealthy, obviously, at every level. We're in the worst shape we've ever been, sadly. So once you identify what your dream goal or objective is that you're willing to actually put your heart into and get involved in, then the number 2 means there's only 2 forces that create everything in the universe: the feminine, which is sometimes called yin in the Chinese approach, and the masculine, which is yang. So the feminine energy is basically what draws energy and resources in. So yin draws energy and resources in and expands like a sponge sucking water into it until it sweats it out. So in my system, there's 6 foundation principles. You got to pay attention to nutrition, hydration, and sleep. Those are the feminine principles because all of those bring energy and resources in. And if you don't have adequate nutrition, hydration, or sleep, you're going to break down. And then yang is, how are we breathing? How is our thinking? Is it dream oriented or is it self-defeating and negative? And how I'm moving my body. So those are the 3 principles of yang, which is the division of energy and resources, or outgoing energy and resources. So the 2 of my system says you always got to look at your life and say, where am I being too yin, not getting enough done, hanging around, lazing around on the couch, playing too many video games, not being active, not contributing, or not getting enough nutrition, hydration, sleep? And where am I too excess masculine, outgoing energy, working too much, exercising too much, not enough exercise would be excess yin, thinking too much, breathing too fast because I'm not paying attention and I'm maybe reacting to psychological fears or unresolved traumas, or just afraid of a deep relationship with yourself. And where am I spending more money than I really should be spending? And it's putting me under undue stress physically, emotionally, and mentally, and causing me to never be able to relax. Or, maybe I'm trying to live a facade, like I rent an apartment, but I drive an $80,000 car and wear leather pants, which is so common, especially in California. And a lot of places, New York, all over the world, actually.
Especially the leather pants.
Right. Yeah. The whole thing, right? The whole show. So when we're looking at the 2, we have to be honest and say, okay, where am I out of balance at minimum with nutrition, hydration, sleep, relative to breathing, thinking, and moving? And so once we identify where the imbalances are, then we have to look at Dr. Happiness, because Dr. Happiness is the chief physician, because Dr. Happiness's job is not only for you to get clear on what is happy making for you, but when you're going to do that on a daily or a weekly basis, so that you actually take responsibility for being happy instead of resorting on pills, social medias, influences, or expecting someone else to make you happy, which is a death trap in relationships.
Sure.
And it's Dr. Happy's job to say, okay, this is my dream. This is what's happy making. So this is how I got to move my body so I'm healthy enough to live that way. This is how I have to eat so I'm healthy enough to live that way. And this is how I have to rest. And this is my commitment to spending time with myself each day, at least at the end of the day, and reviewing my day and say, how could I live and love more fully today? And so Dr. Happy's job is to have clear core value statements. This is my core value around the quality of food I'm going to eat. This is my core value about how much water I'm going to drink every day and the quality of water. This is my core value about how I choose to move my body, when, for how long, and in what ways. And that has to correlate to what your dream is, because if you're doing the wrong type of exercise, then you won't be prepared for your dream. If your dream is to be a mountain climber, but you're doing aerobic exercise all the time, you won't be strong enough and you won't be agile enough. So you always have, this is why a Chek professional has a very careful analysis they do, so they can design programs highly specific to your unique needs. So then you have to have core values about, when am I going to get to bed at night so I get at least 8 hours of sleep at night and I can be healthy and give my body time to repair itself. And so we have to have values around what's happy making, movement, diet, rest, and introspection. or we run into trouble because we just do what everybody else is doing or what being sold on social media and television. And I tell people all the time to remember your yes has no value until you learn to say no. And you never know when to say no until you have a core value to make a decision or to be discerning about what you put into your body, how you use your money, how you relate, and how you go about creating joy in your life. So we went from the 1 to the 2. 1, what is my dream goal or objective? 2, where am I out of balance? 4 is the 4 doctors. 3 is there's only 3 choices you can make in relationship to any person, place, or thing. 1 is the optimal choice, which is best for everybody involved on your dream team and you. The 2nd is the suboptimal, which usually gives instant gratification but causes problems in your ability to create your dream or get along with your dream team. And then the 3rd option is do nothing. Do nothing has 3 applications. Do nothing if you have to make an important decision, but you don't have adequate information, such as during COVID, a lot of people made a very important decision, but didn't take the time to gather the information. And now we have a tremendous amount of death and injury because of that lack of discipline and discernment. So do nothing when you have to make a decision, except do the research you need to make an intelligent, well-informed decision. Next, call a timeout and do nothing if you can't stay connected at the heart to somebody that you're arguing with or disagreeing with, so you don't damage the relationship, and just say, look, I got to call a timeout. Let's come back to this when we can stay connected at the heart because I value the relationship. So you have to learn to walk away before you destroy relationships. And the worst application of do nothing is to be apathetic, which means you don't care. And usually apathetic people have already been depressed for quite a while, and they're often close to suicide. So they're really not healthy. To not even care about your life or about other people is a very, very, it's a very low state of consciousness, and it's a very dangerous place to be. So that's the worst possible choice, is to be apathetic. So there you go. You got 1 love, 2 forces, 3 choices, and 4 doctors. And that's how all Chek professionals worldwide go about analyzing you, building your program, and making sure that you direct your consciousness to the things that are absolutely the most essential to living a healthy, fulfilling life, because you can't skip any of those as a therapist, coach, or guide and produce long-term good results. It just is impossible.
Yeah, man. Just dropping knowledge over here. I normally don't do this early in the show. I mean, we're about 36 minutes in, but if someone wants to like find a Chek professional, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
If you go to the Chek Institute website, chekinstitute.com, I think if you scroll at the bottom there, it says find a Chek practitioner, and it'll tell you all the ones around the world that have maintained their license by being current and doing their continuing education and meeting the standards of a Chek professional. Or you can just call the Institute. There's an 800 number and say, I'm in such and such a city in such and such a country. Is there anybody who's the closest to me and what's their qualifications? So there's the Chek Holistic Lifestyle Coaching branch. We call those HLC practitioners, and that goes level 1, 2, and 3. Then the Chek Corrective Exercise Professionals or Chek practitioners, IMS 1, Integrated Movement Science 1 through 5. But most of the people now are in the Chek Academy, so they get cross-trained in all those disciplines, right. And it's a 5-year training program. So they'll either be an IMS 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, and the more training they have, the more knowledge they have, and the more they will charge you for, because they've had to invest a lot of years and money into their training.
Yeah. I will say this, being someone that worked with a hardcore Chek professional, like and I've worked with other trainers. It's kind of hard to even like compare the two. It's like apples and trees, maybe but dogs and cars. like it's a whole different ballgame. You could tell, like, we're talking about stuff that trainers barely scratch the surface on. So I would highly recommend the audience go, and if you guys want to like really go deep on this, go check out where Paul just said on the Chek Institute, and we'll put all that stuff in the show notes so you guys can find it easily. But it's motivating me to go find it. I moved to Austin from San Francisco, and that was the last time I worked.
We got some great ones there.
Yeah, I would be excited to get back into that. I want to kind of pivot a little bit because I've been, I got introduced to plant medicine about 7 years ago. and it's funny because when you're like younger in college and stuff like that, there's, you know, people are messing around with mushrooms and these different plant medicines, like, you know, recreationally. And I actually did when I was really young. I was like 19. I had a really bad experience. So I was pretty like scared of it. I'm like, I'm not, no way. Like I had
It's a healthy fear.
Yeah. And it happened, like, it's a long story, but it happened like, you know, setting, and neither were good, and it ended up being a bad experience. And so I was like, oh, never do, like, no reason to do that stuff again. And got reintroduced to plant medicine journeys about 7 years ago. And it was a whole different ball game. And so a lot of heart and medicine, and so started learning about myself through it. But, you know, one question for you is, you know, I have a lot of friends. I'm very well connected in the entrepreneurial community all across the United States and even internationally. And what I'm noticing, what I'm observing, is this like renaissance with plant medicine right now.
Yeah, we're in what's called the third psychedelic wave. The first worldwide wave.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
There's been 3 waves. The second one, I believe, was the 60s during the Vietnam era. I can't remember when the first one was. But they've all come interesting when the world is under a lot of stress, and when there's a lot of inequality and injustice, and basically the myth of the culture is breaking down, which is what's happening now. So basically, Mother Nature leaves medicine all around you, and actually, my research has shown me that every single insect and animal has its own class of natural medicines they use that have psychotropic effects, whether it be using fermented foods to get drunk, or psychoactive plants. I've got a great big huge book of about 500 pages that researches, you know, tons and tons of animals and insects, showing all the research, so they all know what to use to manage stress and to help heal. And as you are probably aware, shamans have been doing this for as long as we have records carved into stone and on the walls of caves. And Terence McKenna writes a lot about the history of that in his book, Food of the Gods. And I think what's happening now is people are losing a sense of meaning in their life. The political system is corrupt. The governmental agencies are corrupt. The corporations are taking over people's minds and stealing them blind through social media and mind manipulation. COVID was 5th generation warfare. And so, you know, we now have the highest rates of anxiety and suicide across the board we've ever had. All the masking completely destroyed childhood development, and researchers in psychology now say we've got a whole worldwide batch of children that will never actually reach normal psychological development because of the damage of masking. So when people lose their sense of meaning and their sense of value, and we also saw the family unit getting broke down by COVID, and a breakdown of religious ideologies, and a lot of warring and in-grouping. And so when people lose their sense of connection, their sense of family, their sense of hope for their life and a dream, then they start reaching into Mother Nature's medicine chest. So you see these natural uprisings of the use of psychedelic medicines, because they actually help break down the default mode network, which is the regions of the brain that create the ego structure, or the sense of self. And they allow you to get more deeply connected to the unconscious aspects of yourself, which are often related to deep feelings of emotion that have been repressed. But they also connect you very deeply to nature and show you what's really going on that your ego is blocking out, because it's a very powerful filtration system. So they allow you to feel reconnected to the kingdom of nature, to the elements, to people. So you actually start feeling part of something much bigger than yourself, which gives you a sense of belonging and a sense of safety. So the plant medicines are actually doing the complete opposite for us as what the medical drug industry and the governmental agencies are doing and the corporations are doing. The plant medicines are integrating and connecting and healing us, while these other agencies are disconnecting us, disrupting and stealing the narrative and confusing people about their gender identity and about family values and about religious values. So you have a healing force coming through the plant medicines to awaken you and reconnect you and to help you heal what's trapped in your unconscious and your unhealed wounds, because they bring them up to the surface so you know they're there, which is why you need a skilled shaman or guide so you don't end up hurting yourself or hurting other people, because a lot of people have a lot of buried trauma that comes up very strongly when the ego structure breaks down. But that's also what gives you the sense of connection, because a lot of people's belief systems are now very, very materialistic. And that materialistic belief disconnects you from spirit. And spirit is the flow of consciousness, and it's the flow of energy and information that creates life. So whenever your belief system disconnects you from spirit, then all there is objects in the world, and there's no sense of connection to how we got here or where we're going. And all the deep questions of life cannot get answered because everything's just an object or a commodity for sale. And you're just a biological robot, like Yuval Noah Harari and Klaus Schwab keep telling people, which is absolute garbage. I mean, it's how you destroy the minds of a culture. So the plant medicines, I feel, are Mother Nature helping wake us up before we completely and utterly destroy ourselves and the planet. And as though they can be dangerous to use, they're often far safer than any correlate they have in the chemical arsenal of the medical industry. And they're natural, and they're generally quite easily accessible now more than ever. So they're very healing, but they have to be handled with reverence and respect because they are extremely powerful.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love your explanation. You know, I have a friend, a really good friend of mine in Omaha, Nebraska, and we were having a conversation about this. And like I said, I know a lot of when I go down the list of the most enlightened, and I think just what I just consider people that are connected and doing great things in the world, we're having the same conversations. We're like, there's this awakening from a consciousness standpoint, and plant medicine seems to be in that conversation. And one of the things he said, which I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because you seem to have some pretty strong and smart opinions, at least from where I'm sitting, is he has kind of a thesis around the confluence of the elevation of consciousness through plant medicine and AI coming together to create these like exponential outcomes between the two. Do you have any perspective on that?
Well, I would say plant medicines are natural or official intelligence, and artificial intelligence is artificial. I think artificial intelligence is a very, very dangerous proposition. And one of the problems with is that they use your phone and your television and spy devices and all the information they can gather on you to program AI. So the paradox is they're using the base of humanity to gather the information to program AI, which means they're actually creating an artificial intelligence out of a human population that's largely psychologically unhealthy, physically unhealthy, emotionally unhealthy, and unproductive. So we're actually creating a monster. And the other thing is, Rudolf Steiner said probably in the late 1800s, man will continue to invent technologies outside of himself until he either destroys the world or realizes everything he's created is an inferior copy of what's inside of him. The question is, which will come first? So the problem is, every time we interact with a machine or a technology that does something that we have the ability to do, we now let go of the skill and trust the technology. So like when I went to electronics school to repair weapon systems on Cobra helicopters, we were not allowed to use calculators. We had to do everything long form, because if your computer technology gets damaged in a battlefield, and you don't know the inner workings of a helicopter and how to fix it, then you are probably going to get killed by the enemy. But today you've got people that can't do math without a calculator. You got people that can't tell what time it is if they look at an analog clock because they're so used to looking at digital clocks. You've got people that don't know how to cook because they keep using packaged food, microwave ovens, and the list is so long. So if you start looking, you've got now AI looking at a student's books that they have to read and writing a summary and writing their thesis for them or their essay for them, and they're getting straight A's, but they're not doing anything except feeding information into AI. So the paradox of it is the more of this technology we use, the stupider we're getting. And if the batteries go dead or the power goes out, you're completely and utterly useless. So we're actually becoming the more you interact with machines, the more machine-like you become. And since these artificial intelligence is algorithm-driven, and it does not have sentience, it does not have feelings, and it's not connected to a field of value. It does not make decisions based on what would love do now, or what does my heart say. It's very, very mathematical, logical, rational, but it's only based, all computer systems can only give you an answer based on the information you put into them. But a human being has a capacity for gut instinct and intuition, which computers cannot have because they have no guts. And intuition draws on the entire cosmos. We're drawing on the intelligence of everything in creation when we use our intuition. And so plant medicines are actually reconnecting you with natural intelligence, and that's what built us. That's what had the intelligence to put 100 trillion cells together that dance in harmony and to create an entire planet with, 1 million animal species and God knows how many plant species that all work in harmony. And the further we've gone into the Industrial Revolution, the more we've destroyed the planet, the ecosystems, and each other. So I think it's a very, very dangerous concept to couple plant medicines with AI, because one will give you information that's completely contradictory to the other. It would be like asking a robot how to have better sex with your wife than paying attention to your wife.
Right.
It ain't going to work very well.
Yeah.
So I think we're at a very dangerous crossroads. And when you look at the health of the ecosystems of the planet and how dangerously close we are to an environmental collapse, you see all this money being poured into AI and building rockets and satellites and 5G systems to monitor everybody and control everybody. But all that money is going out into space and into externals while we're ignoring the fact that the oceans are dying, we're fishing the oceans out, we're poisoning the waterways of the world, we're spraying glyphosate and chemtrails all over the world, we're vaccinating people with scientifically unvalidated stuff that's killing people off left, right, and center. We've got turbo cancers popping up everywhere. We've got kids with the highest rates of disease ever. So you can see that AI, because it's machine-based and it's owned by the very scientific materialist type people that are disconnected from nature to begin with and own the corporations that have destroyed nature, which paradoxically the World Economic Forum is full of the very corporations that are the chief polluters and destroyers of nature, while promising us to protect nature and protect us, which is the biggest pile of horse shit I've ever seen shared in the world. And the problem is people fall for this crap hook, line, and sinker. So I think that we have to use artificial intelligence with the same level of care that we would use very dangerous high explosives in a military operation or in a construction operation, such as demolition of a building, or people can be easily destroyed. And we also have to remember the people that are spending the massive amounts of money to network this massive amount of computers are putting themselves in a position to have almost total control of people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And that technology is well established, and it was well described as how they ran the 5th generation warfare that led COVID to be what it is and still continues to this very day right on your phone. And so we now have the most dangerous threat to the development of our children and their minds and the development of the youth. And we are creating a system that is so exhaustive of energy resources and resources to run, because these computer systems are massive and they draw huge amounts of energy and resources. And you got all sorts of third world countries mining and using slave labor to get all the stuff you need to make all the chips for the phones and solar panels. This whole drive towards electric cars. I mean, there is so many levels of absolute deception going on connected to all this. The plant medicines take you in the opposite direction. They make you love nature. They make you want to be in nature. They make you more aware of your feelings and of love and its importance. And they make you want to apologize to people you've abused. They inspire you to grow and to heal and to be self-responsive and to be self-actuated, to contribute some kind of good, beauty, or truth to the world. But AI is actually teaching you to be weaker and weaker and dumber while creating the illusion you're smart, because you got a thing in your hand that can tell you almost anything. But you can get so much information from AI, you can never fact check it all. So we're going to very soon have an entire culture of people that are walking around with a head full of beliefs, not realizing they've been planted there by the very people that have turned them into laboratory guinea pigs and are profiting off every thought, feeling, and mood that they have, and selling them exactly what they want to sell them while deteriorating people's health, and then profiting off of that by selling them designer drugs that can be delivered by nanobots that will come by way of more attempted forced vaccinations and all sorts of the kind of crap we've just seen go on for 5 years now. So I think we're at an extremely dangerous point in the evolution of man, and we could utterly destroy ourselves with what we think is some kind of advanced intelligence. But I ask people all the time, doesn't it concern you at all that the first descriptor in the word is artificial? If I asked you to eat artificial food, you'd think twice. If I wanted you to make love to an artificial woman, you'd think 2 or 3 times. But here we are buying into this hook, line, and sinker, which is just a sign that we've lost our sense of rationality and common sense, and believe almost anybody that gives us the illusion of success or some kind of a daddy figure, which goes back to the fact that we have got to grow up and stand our own 2 feet and contribute to the world as adults instead of just being followers. And that's one of the reasons religion is so dangerous, because it's actually a system of conforming and not thinking for yourself and believing. And whenever you believe, you stop asking questions. You don't challenge a belief system, or they'll punish you or get rid of you. So the idea that God would burn you in hell if you challenge that in church, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. So it actually keeps people in the child archetype. They never grow up to be self-actuated, self-responsible adults that question authority and think for themselves. And AI will turn us into nothing but a pumpkin patch of subservient little slaves that are brainwashed by their every device and not even know it's happening to them. And COVID was a classic example of exactly what that looks like.
Wow. Oh man, I want to respect the clock. You got a couple more minutes?
Sure.
You got to run.
No.
I'm like, all right, I don't want to leave the show on a bummer, but I appreciate what you're saying. Which
I don't think it should be a bummer. I think it's a fact, and we've got to say, okay, what kind of world do we want to create?
Yeah.
And if it's a bummer, it means you've already been trapped. For me, it inspires me to get up every day, do something, eat well, live well, and contribute to the world, and quit whining and crying and playing dead. Yeah. So it shouldn't be a bummer. It's, in Spirit Gym, I teach all challenges are opportunities, right? I'm sure you've learned and grown far more from the challenges in your life than you have from the birthdays, the Mai Tais, and smoking pot and celebrations, right? We all learn most from the challenges in our life. And if we wait around for somebody else to do something about this, then we're already done, because the organizations that can do something about it are the very ones that are imprisoning you with all this technology while trying to convince you it's going to make your life easier. But an easier life is not a life that grows you into somebody who's self-responsible, capable, and aware enough to realize when people are being abused and operates from their heart to help make the world a better place for all living beings. And that's my commitment.
Yeah. No, listen, I you actually like answered what my question was going to be. Well, yeah, there's a lot there, and I agree with you. I think that especially with just where I've had kind of a revolution in my own life around who do I want to be and how do I want to be there. And funny enough, we were talking about core values earlier. I wrote a book about how do you build a core value driven organization called the core value equation. So we're speaking the same language.
Yeah.
But you answered the question, which was, well, what should people do about this? And I think that the answer you gave was the right one, which is take ownership of your life and go out there and challenge what is a lot of bullshit. Because to your point, yeah, that's my perspective. And I'm watching people get manipulated around me because of a lot of the noise that's out there.
Yeah.
And my perspective is like, take your time. Don't believe what people are spoon feeding you because of your belief system that they've helped indoctrinate you into, and go and understand that there's three truths out there: the truth, and then their side and the other side, and go do your own research on all these different things. And don't just believe what people are going to spoon feed you, because right now, I think more than ever, and maybe you have a perspective on this, that there's way more manipulation that's going out there to try to manipulate people's beliefs so they can control them. That's
totally. Yeah, the one of the most important things we can ever ask ourselves, which is part of growing up and becoming an adult, is it really true? And then doing the research to figure it out for yourself, because there's nothing more dangerous than a quarter truth or a half truth, because people accept those by being lazy, and it's close enough to the truth that they don't question it. Whenever someone tells you an outright lie, it's easy to see, right? Sure. If Donald Trump got on television and said, "I'm a woman," we'd all know he was just messing with us, because it's obvious that he's not a woman. But if he did half the job and said, "I'm a woman," we would say, well, what, it looks like you got a penis there. So the point I'm making is, whole truths are easy to identify, but people that are messing with our heads and ruining our lives are using quarter truths and half truths and wrapping it up in the name of science, which is absolute bullshit, because 99% of what they say is validated by science turns out to kill people and destroy their lives. And that you've seen that in the drug industry going on forever. Every drug ever taken off the market was first validated by science, because science is bought and paid for. There's an old saying, it's hard to change a man's belief system when his paycheck depends on it. And COVID was a perfect example of exactly that.
Yeah.
But what I say in response to your question is, the best thing you can do is do what you love to do. If you love to sing, sing some truth. If you love to dance, dance some truth. If you love to paint, paint the truth. If you love to write, write some truth. We all have genius within us. Darius, you have a genius that I don't have, and I have genius you don't have, and your kids will have genius that you don't have. So every one of us comes to the world carrying a piece of the puzzle, and ultimately we're here to contribute to each other and to our ultimate growth, to self-realization, so we can really celebrate who and what we really are. And that's the path of true spirituality, is that awakening. And so we're at a time right now where we actually have a reason to ask bigger questions and to interact with each other and learn from each other. And it should be all hands on deck, but it shouldn't be that stressful, because I run a podcast so that I can help awaken people, because that's what I love to do and that's what I'm good at. But if you ask me to go work in Donald Trump's campaign, I wouldn't be motivated to do that, because I don't enjoy politics and I'm not that kind of guy. There's many things I could do, but it's not the thing that my heart's in. And when your heart's not in it, you don't seek mastery. You don't seek to do a good job. You just get by. But right now we need people to really decide what is it they love to do that can contribute. If you love to help clean up nature, or protect trees, or protect wildlife, or support farmers, or inform people about the danger of Bill Gates and all his silly, GMOs, frankenfoods, vaccines, and all that other crap, then write a book about the truth about Bill Gates and get it out there. So in a nutshell, if we really just think about what are the problems in the world and what can I do that fits my natural genius and is something I love to do anyhow and contribute, we can all make this world a lot better place very, very quickly. But if we just keep on staring at social media screens and hoping someone's going to rescue us, like Jesus is going to come back or something, well, we're stuck right in the child archetype and we're their little play toys and it's over.
Yeah. Man, you just dropping so much knowledge on here. I respect it and appreciate it so much. Thank you so much, Paul. This has been awesome. I want to have, obviously, the people want to connect. They want to learn more about all your work. What's the best place for them to connect with you to learn more about all the different things you're working on?
Well, to learn more about me and my podcast, just go to paulchek.com, PAULCHEK. My institute, which has lots of online courses and books and things for the public as well as the professional sector, is chekinstitute.com. My Spirit Gym program can be seen at myspiritgym.com. And my YouTube channel with about 1,100 videos I've done for public education and to help people in the public on a wide variety of topics is youtube.com/Paul Chek live, youtube.com/Paul Chek live. So that is a massive amount of information between those sites on almost any topic that you can even imagine.
Definitely. So we're going to go ahead and put all that in the show notes. With that said, we have our greatness question. You got a minute for me to run it? You buy that and we'll get you out of here?
Hit me.
All right. Paul, what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how'd you overcome it?
The number one barrier I had to overcome to achieving greatness in my life was not believe it when other people told me that I wouldn't amount to much or that I wasn't smart or they had negative things to say about me. I always just trusted in myself, believed in myself, and knew in my heart that if I worked hard and did what I love to do, I would be successful, and I was right.
I love it, man. Mr. Paul Chek, you are amazing. I had high expectations for this show, and you blew me out of the water on those expectations. Really appreciate you coming on here today. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for sharing your love and helping make the world a better place for everybody. And you're a perfect example of exactly what I suggest people do. So thank you very much. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to share. And I'll just say, if I've upset any of your listeners, then they should sit very carefully and look into what it is that I said that upset them, because that's exactly where they need to look. If you understood and agreed with me, then as the old Quaker saying goes, pray and move your feet. We all need to pray and we need to move our feet. Otherwise, we just think God is some daddy figure in the sky that hand out gifts to kids, and that means we'll never grow up. So if you didn't like what I said, then investigate it for yourself. Don't just be caught in a belief system or an opinion. And if you do agree with what I said, then make sure you're moving your feet, because we all got to participate. It's an all hands on deck situation.
Definitely. Guys, share this. There's so much knowledge here. I mean, it was like a 1 hour and 6 minute show, excluding commercials, probably times 2 with the amount of knowledge that just got dropped. As leaders, we share this information. Thank you, Paul, so much. Until peace out, everybody. We love you. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers, and after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
my lover.